I still remember the way he looked at me that Monday morning. Chase Westbridge stood near my desk, his Italian shoes gleaming under the office lights. I was in the middle of a call with our jade supplier in Myanmar when he tapped my shoulder, smirking. "Wrap it up," he whispered. The supplier was explaining the delays caused by new export restrictions. I promised to call back, my stomach already knotting with dread. "I've reviewed the org chart," Chase announced, loud enough for nearby coworkers to hear. His voice carried that unmistakable confidence of someone who'd never earned his position. "And frankly, we're bloated. We need lean, young, fast. You're redundant, Natalie. You're done here." My face burned as I felt eyes turn toward us. 4 years at Westbridge & Co. 4 years building relationships with suppliers nobody else could even contact. 4 years solving problems nobody knew existed. "I run our supply chain," I said quietly. "You're a buyer," he scoffed. "We'll find another. HR will send your release terms by noon." I stood up, smoothed my coat, and locked eyes with him. "Then I suggest you find someone who knows how to get 300 kilograms of sanctioned marble through Naples port without a diplomatic delay." I walked out, leaving only silence behind me. The first text came while I was still in the parking lot, from May in accounting. "What just happened?" Then another from Luis in design. "Did he really fire you?" I turned my phone to silent and drove straight to the highway. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as the reality sank in. I was unemployed. By evening, my inbox overflowed. The Myanmar jade supplier had emailed 3 times, confused about who would handle their shipment now. 2 Italian marble quarries wanted confirmation about upcoming orders. The Iranian onyx supplier, who took me 2 years to build trust with, sent a single line, "Call when possible." I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I packed a bag and drove to my friend Jamie's cabin in the Catskills. "He has no idea what he's done," I told her that night over bourbon on the porch. "No idea at all." Jamie shook her head. "How long until they realize?" "The silk shipment from China needs clearance tomorrow," I said. "So I give it maybe 48 hours before things start falling apart." My phone buzzed again. A text from my assistant. "Maya, the Iranian supplier wants to know if you're still with us." I smiled into my glass. "Make that 24 hours." The jade supplier was the first to go silent. I learned this from Maya, who still texted me updates. "Nobody's answering calls from Westbridge," she wrote. "They're asking specifically for you." I wasn't surprised. Mr. Lee from Myanmar only dealt with people he trusted personally. I had spent months building that relationship, learning basic Burmese phrases, memorizing the names of his grandchildren. To him, business wasn't about companies. It was about people. Chase didn't understand this. According to Maya, he'd sent a generic email to all suppliers announcing leadership changes in procurement and expecting business as usual. Mr. Lee hadn't even replied. By Wednesday morning, the shipment of rare green jade, intended for a billionaire's Tokyo penthouse, was officially delayed. The client was getting nervous. "They called an emergency meeting," Maya texted. "Chase keeps saying they'll find another supplier." "There is no other supplier, Nat." I walked along the creek behind Jamie's cabin, breathing in the fresh mountain air. My phone showed 6 missed calls from Westbridge's main office. I declined the 7th as it came in. They were starting to understand, but it was already too late. On Thursday, everything accelerated. Jamie and I were drinking coffee on the porch when my phone lit up with a barrage of notifications. Maya had taken screenshots of the company's Slack channel. "Where did she keep the export license contacts?" wrote someone from legal. "Check her files," responded Chase. "I did," wrote HR. "There's nothing, just shipment records." "That's impossible. She must have a database somewhere." Maya added her own message. She was the system, showing Jamie the screen. "They think I kept some magic spreadsheet with all my contacts." "Didn't you?" Jamie asked. "No." I sipped my coffee. It was all relationships, face-to-face meetings, trust built over years. Another screenshot came through. 4 major suppliers had officially stopped responding to any Westbridge communication. The $4 million silk shipment for a royal family's palace renovation was nowhere to be found in the tracking system. Jamie studied my face. "Do you feel bad for them?" I thought about Chase's smirk as he fired me in front of everyone. "No," I said truthfully. "I don't." Friday brought the message I'd been waiting for. The Iranian onyx supplier, whose family had controlled the finest quarry for 3 generations, sent a company-wide email that Maya immediately forwarded to me. Miss Harper is no longer with you. Neither are we. I remembered meeting Mr. Rashidi at a trade show in Dubai 2 years ago. There had been a language barrier, so we communicated through nods, hand gestures, and sketches on paper. By the end of that day, he'd agreed to supply Westbridge exclusively with his rare black onyx with gold veining. No contracts were signed, just a handshake that meant more than any legal document. Chase is freaking out, Maya texted. He doesn't understand why they won't work with his new procurement team. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Later that afternoon, an executive finally whispered the truth to Chase, according to Maya. This is bad. Really bad. That night, Jamie and I built a bonfire under the stars. I roasted marshmallows and watched the flames dance. For the first time in years, I felt no urgency, no pressure, just peace. The company phone I'd left on the kitchen counter buzzed constantly until its battery died. By Monday morning, Westbridge was in full panic mode. Maya reported that they'd tried using different names on purchase orders to trick suppliers into fulfilling existing contracts. One European marble supplier had laughed outright. "We only deal with Natalie," they'd replied. "Or we don't deal at all." Chase had gathered the entire procurement team for a marathon strategy session. They called every contact in my work email, every number in the company database. Most calls went unanswered. Those who did pick up asked one question: Is Natalie still with Westbridge? Then came the biggest blow. The $4 million silk shipment, hand-woven by artisans in a remote Chinese village, had completely disappeared from the shipping manifest. It wasn't delayed. It wasn't rerouted. It simply wasn't there anymore. The client, an Arabian princess redesigning her palace, was furious. The silk had been commissioned in a specific shade of blue that took months to perfect. "They're trying to blame it on a clerical error," Maya texted, "but everyone knows the truth." I forwarded this message to Jamie, who was out getting groceries. Her reply made me smile. Karma works faster in business than anywhere else. Tuesday brought the first major financial hit. The mega yacht client, a Russian billionaire building a 300-foot vessel with interiors that rivaled royal palaces, put their entire project on pause. Reason cited: supplier instability. This wasn't surprising. 3 months earlier, I had visited the shipyard in Hamburg to reassure the yacht's architect about our marble delivery timeline. He had been nervous about delays affecting his schedule. "Mr. Petrov," I had told him quietly, using his native Russian, "my word is my bond. You will have your stones before the hull is complete." That was all it took. He trusted me because I had never failed him before. Now Maya sent me his email, addressed to Westbridge, but also forwarded to my personal account. I was promised reliability by Miss Harper. Without her guarantee, we must reevaluate our partnership. The project was worth $12 million in materials alone. Its pause sent ripples of panic through Westbridge's executive floor. I received a LinkedIn message from a headhunter that afternoon. "Your reputation precedes you. Several firms are interested in discussing opportunities." I showed Jamie over dinner. "That didn't take long," she remarked. "The industry is smaller than people think," I replied. By Wednesday, Chase was drowning. A major hotel chain demanded a refund on their 30% deposit, nearly $2 million already paid for custom marble, onyx, and rare woods. "You fired the one person holding your back end together," their purchasing director wrote. "We cannot risk our timeline on your internal chaos." Maya's updates became more frantic. "They're calling emergency meetings every 2 hours. Chase looks like he hasn't slept." The board members were asking questions now. Westbridge's stock had dipped as rumors of supplier problems spread through industry channels. That afternoon, Chase went to the boardroom with data showing the impact of my departure. His conclusion, according to Maya, who had prepared the slides: "We need to rehire her." I was sitting by the lake when the first direct email arrived from Chase himself. The subject line read, "Urgent, please reconsider." I deleted it without reading further. Jamie brought me lemonade and sat beside me on the dock. "Are you even a little tempted to go back?" I watched a bird dive into the water and emerge with a fish. "Not even a little," I said. "Some things can't be fixed with an apology." Thursday morning, my phone rang. Chase Westbridge calling directly. I declined it and blocked his number. You don't owe them your peace, Jamie said as we hiked through the woods. The fall colors were beginning to show, hints of orange and gold among the green. By afternoon, Westbridge's situation had deteriorated further. Their top supplier, a family-owned quarry in Italy that had provided marble for the Vatican's restorations, publicly announced they would no longer fulfill Westbridge orders. "This is unprecedented," Maya texted. "They've been with us for decades." What Chase didn't know was that I had personally helped the quarry owner's son secure a U.S. student visa last year. These were the kinds of connections that couldn't be documented in any spreadsheet or transferred in any handover. I spent the evening reviewing job offers that had begun arriving in my inbox. 5 top design firms, 3 luxury hotel chains, even a royal family's private office. "You're basically the most wanted woman in procurement right now," Jamie laughed. I smiled. Funny how being fired can sometimes be the best career move. That night, I allowed myself to imagine a new beginning. Somewhere my value would be recognized from day one. Friday marked 1 full week since my firing, and Westbridge's collapse accelerated beyond anyone's predictions. 6 more suppliers went completely dark within 24 hours. No warnings, no explanations, just silence. Maya's updates grew more alarming. The $300 million super yacht project officially pulled out. 2 high-profile residential clients switched to competitors. A custom furniture maker in Milan returned Westbridge's deposit with a note that simply read, "We work through Natalie only." By afternoon, a major client sent legal notice claiming Westbridge had breached delivery terms. Without the specialized materials only I could source, they had missed 3 critical deadlines. "The legal team is in full crisis mode," Maya wrote. "They're saying we could be liable for millions in damages." I finally turned off notifications from my old work email. The constant updates were beginning to feel like watching a car crash in slow motion. Horrifying, yet impossible to look away from. That evening, I accepted a dinner invitation from Preston Hayes, CEO of Hayes Global Design. His firm had been Westbridge's main competitor for years. "I've admired your work from afar," he told me over the phone. "I'd like to discuss how we might work together." I agreed to meet him in Manhattan on Monday. The real bombshell dropped on Monday morning. Richard Westbridge, Chase's father and the company's founder, returned from medical leave. According to Maya, he walked into the office at 7 a.m. and demanded a full briefing on the supply chain crisis. "You fired Natalie Harper?" he reportedly yelled when Chase explained the situation. The entire executive floor heard him. I could imagine his shock. 2 years ago, when Chase first joined the company, Richard had specifically told him, "Watch how Natalie works. You'll learn more in silence." Richard understood what his son never bothered to learn, that procurement wasn't just about buying things. It was about relationships, trust, and mutual respect that took years to build. My meeting with Preston Hayes went exceptionally well. Over lunch at a quiet restaurant overlooking Central Park, he outlined his vision for expanding Hayes Global's luxury division. "We don't just want to hire you, Natalie," he said. "We want to build something around your expertise." As I was considering his offer, a text came from Maya. "Richard is trying to find your number. He wants to call you himself." Too little, too late, I thought, as I smiled at Preston and said, "I'm very interested. Tell me more." By Tuesday, 3 firms had made formal offers. Hayes Global's was by far the most interesting. They weren't just offering a job, but a leadership position with equity and autonomy. Preston had asked me directly, "What do you need to feel valued here?" I'd been honest. Recognition that what I do isn't just procurement, it's relationship architecture, and I need the freedom to build those relationships my way. He hadn't blinked. "Done. When can you start?" Richard Westbridge finally found my personal email and sent a lengthy apology. He explained that he had been recovering from heart surgery and had no idea of Chase's reckless decision. He offered to double my salary, create a new executive position, even give me a seat on the leadership team. I showed Jamie his email that evening. "What do you think?" she asked. "I think it's sincere," I said. "Richard always valued my work. But Westbridge isn't just Richard anymore, it's Chase too." I drafted my response to Richard. "Thank you for your kind words. I wish you well in rebuilding your supplier network. However, I've accepted a position elsewhere." To Preston Hayes, I wrote, I can start next Monday. Then I turned off my phone and slept better than I had in years. The industry whispers began almost immediately. Where had Natalie Harper gone? Why had she left Westbridge? Who had managed to hire her? I kept a low profile, not updating my LinkedIn or responding to the dozens of connection requests suddenly flooding in. I wanted a clean break, no drama, no public statements. Hays Global respected my approach. Preston announced internally that I would be joining as Executive Director of Global Procurement, but made no public announcement. Still, word traveled fast in luxury design circles. When my name quietly appeared on the team sheet for a palace project in Dubai, the client specifically requested a meeting with me. "Miss Harper," the Sheikh's representative said during our video call, "your reputation precedes you. We are delighted you will be handling our materials." Meanwhile, Westbridge's situation worsened. Maya, who had given notice and would be joining me at Hays, reported that customs officials had halted 2 containers at port. The proper documentation was missing. I had always handled those special requests personally, knowing exactly which officials to contact and how to phrase the requests. "They're completely stuck," Maya texted. "They don't even know who to call to fix it." I felt a moment of sympathy, quickly replaced by resolve. This was no longer my problem. Westbridge officially entered crisis mode. Customs authorities in 3 countries flagged their shipments for detailed inspection, a process that could take weeks or even months. Without the proper connections to expedite the process, their materials sat in shipping containers, accruing daily storage fees. Hays Global welcomed me with respect and excitement. Preston introduced me to the leadership team as the person who will transform our supply capabilities. My office had a view of the city skyline and came with a dedicated assistant. Maya would join in 2 weeks after her notice period. I spent my first days rebuilding my contact list, reaching out personally to key suppliers. Almost all remembered me immediately. "We heard what happened," said Mr. Lee from Myanmar during our call. "Very disrespectful. We are happy to work with you at your new home." The Italian quarry owner was equally warm. "Natalie, for you, we have saved our best Carrara. When can we discuss terms?" That afternoon, I learned that Westbridge was under formal audit by international trade authorities. Apparently, in their desperation, Chase had authorized incorrect paperwork for several shipments. "They're now being investigated for potential sanctions violations," Maya wrote. "All because they didn't understand the proper channels." I shook my head. Some lessons are learned the hard way. The exodus from Westbridge continued. 3 newly hired procurement specialists quit within their first week. A 4th resigned dramatically, telling Chase, "I'm not going to jail for someone else's ego." Meanwhile, I settled into my role at Hays Global. Preston gave me complete autonomy to rebuild the procurement division my way. I hired selectively, focusing on people who understood that our job wasn't just buying materials, it was cultivating relationships. Westbridge's biggest remaining client demanded an in-person meeting, flying their entire design team to New York. Chase panicked, according to Maya, knowing he couldn't deliver what they needed. "They're asking specifically about the Iranian onyx," she wrote. "Chase keeps saying they can find an alternative, but the client insists on that exact stone." What Chase didn't understand was that the quarry producing that onyx had been in the same family for generations. They didn't have a website or a sales team. They dealt only with people they trusted implicitly, people like me. That evening, I received a call from Mr. Rashidi himself. "Natalie," he said warmly, "I hear you are with Hays now. Perhaps we can continue our work together?" "I would be honored," I replied in the formal Persian style he preferred. Another bridge rebuilt, stronger than before. 1 month into my new position, I was walking through a restored cathedral in Vienna, inspecting a rare marble with blue veining that would be perfect for an upcoming resort project. My phone buzzed with news I had been expecting. Hays Global had just signed an exclusive deal with Westbridge's former crown supplier, the Italian quarry that had provided their signature stones for decades. The deal wasn't just about marble, it was about trust. The quarry owners knew I understood their craftsmanship and respected their traditional methods. With me at Hays, they felt their legacy was protected. Maya, now officially my assistant at Hays, managed the paperwork while I focused on the relationships. Together, we created a system that documented the human connections without reducing them to mere transactions. You seem happier, she observed as we flew back to New York. More yourself. She was right. At Westbridge, I'd always felt I had to justify my methods. Here, my approach was not just accepted but celebrated. Preston regularly introduced me to clients as our secret weapon. That afternoon, I learned that another of Westbridge's suppliers, a family of master woodworkers from Japan, had reached out to Hayes specifically asking to work with me. The pieces were falling into place, but not for Chase Westbridge. 6 weeks after my firing, Richard Westbridge made a desperate move. He personally called several of their former suppliers trying to rebuild bridges his son had burned. According to industry contacts, no one would even take his calls. This wasn't surprising. In the world of high-end suppliers, trust isn't transferred from one company to another. It's built between individuals. I had spent years earning that trust through consistent respect, cultural sensitivity, and honest dealings. Mr. Lee asked about you today, Maya told me as we reviewed shipment schedules. He wanted to make sure you were being treated well. I smiled. These weren't just business contacts. They were relationships built on mutual respect. That evening, news broke that a Westbridge board member had resigned, citing irreconcilable differences with current management. The company's stock dropped another 8%. Preston called me into his office to share the update. You never speak ill of them, he observed, even after what they did. I don't need to, I replied. Their actions speak for themselves. He nodded thoughtfully. We're lucky to have you, Natalie. I hope you know that. For the first time in my career, I truly felt that my value was recognized. Not just my results, but my methods too. 2 months in, Westbridge's troubles escalated to legal issues. The incorrect paperwork Chase had authorized triggered a multi-country investigation into their import practices. Authorities in 3 countries were reviewing years of their shipment records. I remained untouched by the scandal. My name appeared in none of the problematic documentation. I had always followed proper channels, even when it meant delays or additional costs. The difference was that I knew how to navigate those channels effectively through personal connections. Hayes Global thrived under our new procurement approach. We secured rare materials that competitors couldn't access. We delivered on time, despite global shipping challenges. Clients began specifically requesting that I oversee their material acquisition. Preston was delighted. Whatever magic you're working, keep it up, he told me during our quarterly review. We've never had such smooth operations. It wasn't magic, of course. It was the power of genuine relationships, something Chase had dismissed as unnecessary. That evening, I received an unexpected email from Richard Westbridge. It was brief but telling. I should have protected you from Chase's arrogance. That failure will always be my greatest regret. I appreciated his honesty but didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt, no matter how expensive the materials. The industry magazine Design Insider published a feature that shook the luxury design world. Westbridge's Golden Girl fired and took the gold with her. The article detailed my unprecedented talent for securing impossible materials and how my departure had destabilized one of design's oldest firms while elevating their chief competitor. It stopped short of directly blaming Chase, but the implication was clear. I read it over coffee in my apartment, smiling despite myself. The journalist had interviewed several suppliers who spoke highly of me, including Mr. Rashidi, who rarely gave statements to the press. Miss Harper understands that fine materials are not commodities, he was quoted saying. They are the legacy of generations. She respects this truth. Maya texted me immediately. Have you seen it? You're basically famous now. By afternoon, my inbox was flooded with congratulatory messages from former colleagues and new connection requests on LinkedIn. Preston called to make sure I was comfortable with the attention. We can issue a statement if you'd like, he offered. Something more modest. I declined. Let the work speak for itself. The article didn't mention that Hayes had recently secured 3 major projects previously earmarked for Westbridge. That was victory enough for me. Exactly 3 months after firing me, Chase Westbridge swallowed his pride. Richard personally called Preston Hayes to ask permission to approach me with an offer. Preston, to his credit, told me immediately, They want you back, badly. Later that day, a formal offer arrived by courier. My old job back at double my previous salary, plus an executive title and profit sharing. Richard had signed it personally with a handwritten note. "We made a terrible mistake. Please help us fix it." Jamie visited that weekend, and I showed her the offer over dinner. "Are you tempted?" she asked, studying my face. "Not even slightly," I replied honestly. I drafted a simple response. "No, thank you, but good luck." Richard called me directly after receiving it. "Name your price," he said, his voice strained. "Whatever it takes." It was never about the money, I told him gently. It was about respect. There was a long pause. "Chase is being reassigned," he finally said, "away from operations." "I'm glad you're making changes," I replied, but my answer is still no. After we hung up, I felt a strange sense of closure. The company that had discarded me now understood my value. But it was too late. I had found somewhere I truly belonged. 4 months after my departure, Westbridge publicly announced they were halting all international shipments to review compliance procedures. The press release claimed this was a proactive measure, but industry insiders knew better. They simply couldn't get materials through customs anymore. Hayes Global, meanwhile, was thriving. We had just completed a flawless delivery for a luxury hotel in Singapore. Rare woods, custom marbles, and handcrafted hardware, all arriving exactly on schedule. The client was ecstatic. "This is why we switched from Westbridge," their project manager told me. "You deliver what you promise." That afternoon, we received news that should have been shocking, but somehow wasn't. Another of Westbridge's major clients had officially terminated their contract and requested a proposal from Hayes. They specifically asked that I oversee their procurement. Preston was delighted but curious. "They're paying a penalty to break that contract," he noted. "Why would they do that?" "Because in this business, relationships matter more than contracts," I explained. "They know I can get them what they need, when they need it." Later, Maya brought me a spreadsheet showing our growth since my arrival. "We've increased secured materials by 40% while reducing compliance issues to 0, she said proudly. I smiled. That's what happens when you do things right the first time. 6 months into my new role, something unexpected happened. Clients began requesting me by name, not Hayes Global, but me personally. "We want Natalie Harper to handle our materials," they would specify in their contracts. This reminded me of a project 2 years ago, a historic theater restoration that had nearly collapsed when the original marble supplier went bankrupt. I had found a perfect match in a small Portuguese quarry that few knew existed. The project was saved, and the client never forgot. Now that same client was building a museum and insisted I oversee all material acquisitions. "Only Natalie," their email stated, "no substitutions." Preston recognized this trend and embraced it, creating a special division under my leadership. The Natalie Harper Collection, he called it, a premium service for clients who wanted guaranteed excellence. While discussing this new division, I received an unexpected invitation. A private global trade summit in Geneva wanted me to speak about relationship-based procurement in luxury design. "You should do it," Preston encouraged. "Your approach deserves a wider audience." I accepted, realizing how far I'd come from that humiliating Monday morning when Chase had dismissed me as just a buyer. Now I was being asked to teach others about the very methods he had failed to value. The news broke quietly at first, just a brief mention in an industry newsletter. Chase Westbridge had resigned from his position, effective immediately. No reason was given, but everyone knew the truth. By afternoon, an internal email had leaked to social media. In it, Chase admitted his mistake. "I thought she was just a buyer. I failed to understand the complexity of the relationships she had built." The admission came too late. Westbridge had lost millions in contracts, damaged their reputation with suppliers on 3 continents, and seen their stock price fall by nearly 30% since my departure. Maya showed me the leaked email, her eyes wide. He actually admitted it. She marveled. I was tagged in social media discussions about the leak. My inbox filled with messages of support from colleagues, suppliers, and even competitors who recognized what had happened. "You never deserved that treatment," wrote one former Westbridge executive. "The industry is better with you in it." That evening, I gave a presentation to our leadership team about expanding Hayes Global's premium sourcing division. Looking at their attentive faces, I realized something important. Here, I wasn't just valued for what I did, but for how I did it. My phone buzzed with another news alert. Westbridge had just lost their biggest remaining client. 9 months after Chase fired me, Westbridge filed for financial restructuring. The official statement cited supply chain challenges and market pressures. But the real reasons were clear to industry insiders. They had lost their critical supplier relationships and couldn't fulfill contracts without them. Meanwhile, Hayes Global celebrated our most successful quarter ever. We had expanded into new markets, secured exclusive relationships with top-tier suppliers, and built a reputation for flawless execution. Preston called me into his office to share a note from our CEO. "Natalie hasn't just joined us. She's rebuilt us into something stronger." I felt a quiet pride reading those words. Not satisfaction at Westbridge's downfall, but gratification that my approach had been validated so completely. That afternoon, I received an unexpected inquiry from a royal family's private office. They were building a new palace and had heard about my ability to source the extraordinary. Would I personally oversee their material acquisition? I agreed to fly to Abu Dhabi the following week for initial consultations. The scope was enormous. Marbles from 3 continents, woods from protected forests, with proper certifications, and custom-made hardware from artisans in 5 countries. "Can we handle something this big?" Maya asked as we reviewed the preliminary plans. "Yes," I said confidently. "This is exactly what we do best." 1 year after being fired, I walked through a historic monastery in Tuscany, inspecting marble cuts for a luxury eco-hotel. The stonecutters, 3rd-generation masters, showed me their work with pride, knowing I understood the artistry behind each piece. Jamie had joined me on this trip, partly vacation and partly to see my world firsthand. She watched with fascination as I discussed veining patterns and cutting techniques in my limited Italian, supplemented with gestures and sketches. "It's amazing," she said as we walked the grounds afterward. "They treat you like family." "Because in a way we are," I explained. "We're connected by respect for tradition and quality." The sunlight filtered through ancient cypress trees as we paused to take in the view. Below us, the quarry that had supplied marble since Roman times continued its careful work, balancing heritage with modern needs. "Still feel like you need a company to belong to?" Jamie asked, referencing my initial fears after being fired. I smiled, thinking of the global network I'd built, the mutual trust that transcended corporate structures, the way each supplier's unique story connected to mine. "No," I replied, feeling the peace that comes with absolute certainty. "I'm the one they all belong to now." Quietly,